So good evening all. Welcome you once again to the 6-day online research methodology course in social sciences conducted by INR Rajana College in association with ICSSR, Southern Region Center, Hyderabad. Okay. I am Dr. Vijay Solomon. I'm going to deliberate on academic writings in social sciences. When you think about academic writing, you need a lot of things, but we need to do the research work before getting into the process. And that needs a comprehensive literature review. Of course, I agree that you all must have done a comprehensive literature review before writing a paper. And if you look at that, we want to have a good research question so that we want to come up with some of the insights from the research question. We need to frame the research question carefully in such a way that the results will be helpful to the society in some way. We will plan what to do first, next, and then, and so on. So we will have a careful planning to take the steps one by one. Then we will write everything during the course of the study, even a small information or a big information, everything will be noted down in our records. And we will carefully plan for the collecting data, especially the data collection in terms of interviews, observation surveys, using the data from the repository or from the government agencies, all those things we will do, and we'll have focus groups and so on. So once we collect the data, it is our responsibility to look at the numbers and gain the valuable information in connection with the study. So we will have a careful analysis using statistical packages or some other methods available. But all these things require a careful planning. Before enter into our research work, we will spend some time in planning the work. What is plan A, what is plan B, and plan C. Okay. So I mentioned that if plan A doesn't work, we need to have an alternative plan to go for a plan B. Then we will just collect the information and there, and then we will make a note of it. And we need to know which methodology that we need to adapt. Should we go for a big hook for a small fish or vice versa? It is up to us to find out the good methodology to deal a problem. And obviously, as the researchers will have a lot of ups and downs in the career, and we need to have a good moral support that should come from us only. So sometimes you just have to pick yourself up and carry on. That is very, very important. If you look at that, all these things are very, very essential, and no one can forget about the importance of financial support. If everything is there, okay, then we have, all these things will come to or will lead to fruitful results, which has to be written as a manuscript, and then we need to publish. And in academic career, publishing research papers is very tough, okay, and it's challenging, that too in reputed journals. Okay, so most of our faculty members will feel that higher level of research in a small classroom is not possible. Then how can we think about publications? Some of our faculty members used to raise this: is it possible to pursue research from everyday affair? Every day I'm going for teaching, I spend a lot of hours in preparation and delivering the lectures. Can I leverage that? These are the question many of our faculty members are raising, and we don't know what all can be a paper. So what I thought, I want to give some of the glimpses from different journals where small things were published as papers. For example, crossing a street, how pedestrians interact with car. Okay, even a person, two people, they actually stood on the crossroad and then they observe how pedestrians interact with the cars when they are crossing the zebra crossing. Oh, this is interesting that the Journal of Teachers Public Resignation Letters, and it is from the Wikipedia or it is from the Google. 22 viral public resignation letters these people took, and they analyzed the psychology behind that. And even anyone can edit Wikipedia, and these people wrote a beautiful article on 10 simple rules for editing Wikipedia. A candle to blow out, an analysis of first birthday family celebrations. This is a paper, interesting paper, where they compare two families, how they have celebrated their child's first birthday, and taking pictures, and they have narrated their backgrounds. A candle to blow out. Very interesting paper, appeared in Journal of Pragmatics. And all these things are some of the small examples that I can give, but we have a lot of other examples with us to really get inspiration, real inspiration from all these papers. A small work, if you carefully crafted, it can be a good paper. And if you look at that, Scopus has education papers, and you can go to Scopus database, click education, and you look at that, there are 1,400 journals. Unfortunately, if we do not have a good laboratory setup or good people to work with, still as a teacher, as a professor, as academician, we can publish in very good reputed journals. You look at that, these are the journals which has an impact of nearly 10. Okay, I can give the site score, it is 12.3 and so on. So this is absolutely fine with us. If we concentrate on our teaching, still we can publish some of our works here. And there are journals where a literature review can be published. You see here a literature review, the role of a teacher in inquiry-based education. So if you have some students to work with you, and you can ask them to collect a lot of literature, and you can give a comprehensive overview on the literature, that can also be published in good journals. The point here is, if we can have a good literature review, then it is possible and it is easy, or it is within our reach that we can get a publication. Okay, so in this particular talk, I would like to cover on the skeleton of the manuscript, then what are the components that are there in the manuscript, and starting from writing the title to references, I would like to cover here. And we know that we need to have a topic, then we come up with the research question, then we will look at the ways in which we can collect the data. Then once the data is there, then we will analyze it, interpret the results, and we'll summarize in the form of result and discussion and then conclusion. This is the flow chart I can give you for writing a review, writing article. Now, it is very important to note that poor experimentation cannot be masked by brilliant writing. Okay, but however, a poor writing can mask brilliant experimentation. So what we need is, we need to write so that our brilliant work can reach the society. So let us concentrate on the writing part here, and this session is devoted to that only. Let us write a paper. When you look at the paper, first thing that strikes in our mind is title, how good the title is. If you look at that, it should include the purpose of research, it should include the scope of the research, and it can include methodology or results. Most of the people are used to have a meta-analysis, or it is an empirical study, or a quantitative study, or a qualitative study, or mixed method. People are happy to include that, but you can include, but most probably it should include purpose and scope is very important. If you look at the title, can be classified into 3 categories. It can be declared a statement which declares what is there in the manuscript, or indicative, it can give an indication about what the title is or what the manuscript is. That can also be there. And interrogative, it can be in the form of a question where the answers can be present in the study. So there are 3 types by which you can classify the titles. Do's and don'ts. If you look at the title, it should not be a very lengthy one. It can be in few words. It should be very catchy so that the readers should not, just bypass your article. The keywords are very important. What kind of keywords that you are using? Conform with journal guidelines. Each journal has its own guidelines. It should not exceed 20 words, 16 words, 18 words. We need to be very careful when we are writing the title, because that's the first one that the readers read. Don't use abbreviative titles. It should not be too long. It should not be too short. Let us avoid unnecessary jargons or exclamatory dot. Please avoid formula, the Roman numerals, uncommon words very specific to your domain, and using the italics word. Unless it is a biological term, we can use italics, but otherwise we should not have italics. Okay, these are the simple do's and don'ts in that title, giving title. Now moving on to the abstract. If you look at the Abstract is another freely available content for any type of articles where it should have only 100 to 300 words, and it should talk about the essence or the crux of the particular paper, and it should include the research question and what are the methodologies that you have adopted and the key results, and it should have some of the implications of the work, like if at all you are doing some work, you want to project it, and what is the implication of this particular one. And let us avoid footnotes and cited works in the abstract. And abstract needs a careful attention, because the common man will read the abstract only when the reader attracted by the title and abstract, then only they will go and download and they can read your work. Okay, now few things I have taken from the Elsevier and Springer and Wiley. These journals commonly they give. If you look at that, they said that the title should summarize the main theme of the article and reflect your contribution to the theory. And the abstract should be crafted carefully and encompass the aim and scope of the study, key problem to be addressed and theory, the method used, the data set, key findings. If you have limitations, yes, you need to mention that, and implication of that particular work. Now, I'm just going to propose a scaffolding where if we use the scaffolding, it is easy for us to give the salient features inside the abstract. First thing, whether my abstract has a significant and knowledge gap. Why did you do it? You need to answer it. And then what did you do? Description of the research problem. And how did you do? How did you approach this problem? Basic design, including methodology, variables, condition, all these things you can give. Then what did you find? The trends and major unique findings that is there. And at the end, you can say the conclusions or a summary or implication. What does it mean to the society? And if you follow these things, then you will have a complete package of the elements that are necessary in the sight of the reviewers as well as the readers. Now, I have taken one particular paper from Journal of Innovation and Knowledge, and I have just looked at that, abstract. What are the key elements that it has? The aim of the study is to investigate. So they have started with the significance of the work, and building upon existing literature, the manuscript proposes a framework for. So what did they do? They have mentioned that. And the framework is composed of a set of interrelated processes explaining the entrepreneurial behavior through identification of the three stages: dream, business idea, and new venture creation. So what are the key variables that they have targeted here? They mentioned that. Though it acknowledges previous management. So what is a unique thing about this particular work, even though many people have worked on that? And at the end, they said that the proposed framework provides a more detailed understanding of entrepreneurs' actions and offers new insights into the evolution of the entrepreneurial process. So this has almost all the elements. Okay, if you look at that, they carefully skip the introductory part, because you do have an introduction. So if you ask me, do we need to have introduction or introductory lines, one or two? It's up to the authors to decide. But the other things that are very, very important, like significance, the knowledge gap, the research question, what did you do, the methodology that you have adopted, the key findings and the implications are the common elements that one should have in abstract. Now we'll move on to the other important section on introduction. Okay, introduction, basically we can say that what is known, what is unknown, and how and why should you fill the gap. These three things are very, very important. If you look at that, first thing is you need to introduce the topic. Here we can have introductory lines, 3 or 4 sentences. It depends upon the journal. Then we need to relate our current knowledge with in that particular field. And we need to say that what is the knowledge gap? People have done this, and what is left? Why do we want to do that? And we need to clearly project our research gap, which should be followed by the objective of this work, or we can say that why do we want to do, or how did we do the work? And finally, we'll say that the aim of this work is to. You can give 1, 2, 3, like that. We can just give the objectives. So introduction needs all these things in our kit, so that it will frame a beautiful story that will attract the readers a lot. Okay, methodology, and this is very, very important, because the entire scientific community, I mean that both arts and humanities, science, and everybody in research and academia would like to have the experiments which can be repeated to get the understanding about the results. So we need to give a complete information about the study, the limitations, and so on, so that if at all others wants to do, they can replicate the experiments at their convenience. And now many journals are now coming up with something called supporting information or supplementary information. If you have a large data and which cannot be presented in the manuscript entirely, then we can give the remaining data into the supporting information, and you can deposit there. So if you look for the journal where you have supporting information, supplementary information, where you can give additional details, results, and discussion. If you look at that, we need to answer a few research questions that we raised in the introduction in the form of objectives or aim. So we need to have a comprehensive results which should be described and discussed. I said described, even though if you are giving a pie chart or a graph or in the form of table, we have a lot of numbers, and I feel that if you describe what the table is, what the figure is, and then you take the key points and you interpret, it will be a very good way of dealing with the results and discussion. And mainly you should not forget about pointing out or citing the conflicting results that you got, or the unexpected findings that you found in your results. And if at all you find any discrepancies with the other research, you should mention that, and you can give why I got that. That also you can say. And of course you can mention that the limitations of the study, maybe it may be the sample size, or it may be the demography of the sample, anything, and you can mention it. And don't forget to mention about the importance of the finding. I don't say that important findings, I said that importance of the finding, what you want to convey to the society. All these things you need to give in a concise and precise way, so that people will enjoy going through a question, research question, followed by how you tackle the problem, what is your answers to those questions. Conclusions, and most of the people used to have a confusing mind when they are writing the abstract and conclusion. Conclusions of a research paper is where you wrap up your ideas and leave the reader with a strong final impression. It has several key goals. Number one, restate the research problem addressed in the paper. That should be the first line of your conclusion. You have to reiterate the entire work in a one line. Here we study the importance of GST in the economic growth of Tamil Nadu industrial development, okay, through a quantitative and qualitative study. So it is like, it is about this work, you need to give that. Okay, that's why I said that restate the research problem addressed in the paper. Then the second one is summarize your overall arguments or findings. And you have to summarize that, what are the findings, key findings, not all the findings. Then such is the key takeaways from your paper. What do you want to convey to the readers that, yeah, I have got this, so these are the things are takeaways. If you have these things, definitely you will have a complete package about a manuscript starting from a title to conclusion. Okay, and now I want to give some of the rule of thumbs. If you go for this style or strategy, it will be good for the authors as well as the readers. Okay, let me start with the title. What is a title? Title indicates content and main discoveries. As I mentioned, that it should talk about the purpose and scope of the work. And preferred style is short and simple, 7 to 10 words. Most of the journals prefer not exceeding 16 words. It should be purposive, aims at specific audience. It should not be too general. It should be targeting a specific audience. Avoid complex grammar. Make it very catchy. Every time we said investigation of, study of, let us avoid those. Let us liberate from those conventional terms. Okay. you can give a catchy title so that people can relate themselves with the title a lot. Abstract, the second important thing to the title, it should reflect the main story of the research question, and it should call attention, and it doesn't need any extra explanation. It should be a concise paragraph where the entire work should be summarized. Preferred style, past or past perfect tense are fine. Usually passive voice is preferred. Each word, each sentence should be short and concise. And let us not include any table, any figure, any graph, any citation, any reference in the abstract. And the rule of thumb is avoid introducing a topic. As I mentioned, you straight away start with the significance of the work, followed by the knowledge gap. Explain what was done, what was found, and what are the main conclusions. Bring, summary numbers. At the end, you can complete with the implications. Moving on to the introduction, it should give an overview about the work. It should relate with the past work that people have done in that field, and it should talk about the knowledge gap. And if you look at the style, simple tense for referring to established knowledge, or past tense for literature review. And the rule of thumb is use the state of the art references. The key references in that particular field should be mentioned. The key person's contribution should not be hidden there. Okay, follow logical moves in the way that it should be a kind of storytelling. What has happened? There was a man in the village. Oh, what is that? And he was very poor. Then, and he got 1 crore in lottery. Oh, what happened then? Then he started a business. Then, like that, it should have a logical flow. And if you are okay with the flow, then it will be a very good introduction, and people will enjoy reading your manuscript. Methods, as I mentioned, that it should give a forum for others to rework on the same topic, and they need to take your experiments, or they need to take your numbers. Okay, and it should give details about who, what, when, where, how, and why. And preferred style is mostly past tense, but active voice is preferred. And you need to use the terms and nomenclature. Everything should be an international standard. Say, for example, it may be a unit or a variable or a material. Rule of thumb: mention everything you did that can make importance to the results. Don't hide any of your gray area here. You should not ignore intentionally or unintentionally the kind of data that you have collected and the way in which you have collected the data. And use simple example to explain complex methodology. It is not a place where you don't want to throw your glossary of words and confuse the readers and the viewers. Okay. Result and discussion, and of course you give your summary of the results in a logical way, and that should be step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and make sure that each of the sections have some connection, and that should be intertwined in a way that it can be matched with the other sections and gaining some points from the previous sections and so on. And past tense is preferred, and we urge you to use tables, graphs, and other illustrations. It can be a flow chart, or it can be a pie chart, and so on, so that the complex numbers or complex sentences can be avoided, and just a figure will speak volumes about your research work. And the rule of thumb is you present the data in connection with your objectives that you have raised. Give more emphasis on what should be emphasized. You don't want to give all the data, and you don't want to rephrase all the numbers that are there in the table. Okay, make clear separation between yours and other work. Wherever possible, you get help from the literature, and whether your result is in line with others or not, you make sure that you should touch upon that. And conclusions, if you look at the conclusions, it should be distinctly different from the abstract. Abstract will tell that what is the work and few key findings. But in conclusions, you need to say that restate your problem in one sentence, and then you just segment your conclusions, and it should conclude by a comprehensive summary of your results with future implications. Preferred style is simple and present tense, and it should allow specific speculations if necessary, and you can very well mention about your limitations. And you should not copy any sentences from the resultant discussion, but you need to reiterate the sentences in a logical way so that it should connect with your title, the research question that you ask in your introduction, and it should be reflected in the conclusion. If you follow all these things, you will have a better way of writing your manuscript. Few golden rule. Okay, take a reader's view. If you write something and you just think about that, writing for the audience. Tell a story. You always remember that we love storytelling, and your paper should be one of that kind. Be yourself. Being a non-native speaker of English, we do have our own limitations. We do have our own usage of language, and let us believe that we can write a beautiful story in our own terms. Make it very simple sentences to explain the things, simple examples to explain the complex methodologies. Make it concrete and short, very precise and concise. Your statements should be. Take responsibility. It is always good that we find, okay. In scientific writing, some people said that it is not good that we should not use I, we, but that is not the case. We can very well use I assume that, or I believe that, or I feel, okay, or we view in this way, like that. And make strong statements. We concluded instead of it may be concluded. Avoid the word maybe. Be self-critical. Consider uncertainty of the conclusions and their implications, and acknowledge work of others. That is very, very important. So if you follow these things, you will have a very good academic writing time with your work. Okay. Now, that is regarding the work that we need to write. Now, okay, I'm fine with that. Where I can go and publish my work? Many times, what happens when we submit our manuscript, they'll simply say it is rejected. We need to have a habit of going through the aims and scope of the journal and read what is the expectation, whether our work, our research field, our paper fits into the research scope. If not, we don't want to waste our time in refining our manuscript and submitting to this journal. Okay. So you look at that, this particular journal tells that one of the fundamental goals of the journal is the use of evidence from rigorous investigation to identify and address the increasingly complex issues confronting teacher education at the national and global level. If your paper, if your research work doesn't fit into this particular scope, let us not push our paper to this particular journal. Okay. And if you look at that, most often we used to send our cover letter to the journal like this: dear editor, I am sending a manuscript entitled this and this. We would like to consider for the publication in your journal. Let us not look at that, because cover letter needs something else. Springer says a good cover letter can help to sell a manuscript to the journal editor, because good journals will reject a lot of papers that are being submitted on a daily basis. And if you see that 100 papers are being submitted, only 10 they will send it for review, and we should be fortunate enough to be one of the 10 manuscripts submitted on the given day. Okay, so you need to write a good cover letter, and it says that it should have 3 paragraphs. First paragraph, what is your title, and you briefly explain about your study and your research question. Second paragraph, what was done and main findings, why they are significant. The third paragraph is you should say that how this work is apt to this particular journal. Okay, so take your cues from the journal's aim, scope, and match. If these 3 things are there, it will be good. And when we say that all cover letters should contain these sentences, we confirm that this manuscript has not been published elsewhere and is not under consideration by another journal. All authors have approved the manuscript and agree with its submission to the journal. So these statements are very, very essential, because we cannot submit the same paper to different journals. That is against ethics. Okay, so we need to be very careful, and we need to say that yes, we will submit this paper to the journal only when we get the information from this journal. And submission checklist, you look at that. Have you gone through the instructions for the authors? Everything is in line with the guidelines, and all the files in the correct format, whether it is a JPEG or whether it is an Excel sheet or anything else. Spelling and grammar are correct. Whether if you are passionate UK followers, you can go for UK English or US English, but you don't want to mix both. If you follow either UK, you go for UK, or the US, go for US. You have contact information for all the authors, and you write a good cover letter. That is very, very important. And this is an interesting article written by one of the leading journals editor called ACS Nano editor Jason Hafner. In that, he wrote what exactly happening when they are looking at the journal. Look at that. The editors have not traveled the long journey described above with the submitting authors and are likely hearing about the idea for the first time. If you are working with some of the tax policies, it's not the first time that you discover. Many people would have worked on that from different countries. Perhaps the editor himself expert in that. But in a perfect world, the authors and editors could discuss the manuscript over coffee to be sure the novelty and significance of the work are appreciated. So they do not have much time. They are very busy. There are professors in leading universities. So it is likely that the authors could be more persuasive in person than in the formal text of the manuscript. Sadly, such meetings are seldom possible. However, one last chance at certain interaction available in the penultimate step, missing from the sequence of events above, the cover letter. Among the requested items of information to be included in the cover letter is a statement of why the paper is appropriate for the journal. Well, this is just one of the several requested elements. It is by far the most vital. The cover letter provides the chance for authors to persuade the editors of the significance of their work in a less formal manner than what is written in the manuscript itself. While most authors take advantage of this opportunity, there are many cases where the opportunity is squandered, even though it could be the difference between a manuscript sent for external review or one rejected without further consideration. That actually put it together, the importance of cover letter. So let us write a very good cover letter with the intention of pushing this particular manuscript to that journal. Okay, so if you are writing your letter in a hurried way, you're not wasting an opportunity to get into a good journal. So the point here is you should spend time in writing a convincing cover letter. Okay, then we need to have a habit of acknowledging others, and we need to acknowledge the funding, the institution, and the individual for their contribution in successfully completing the manuscript. Okay, and references, the important aspect in the journals. Each journal has its own way of referencing format, and you need to strictly adhere to the conditions laid on by the journals. And the purpose of citing others in the form of citations or references, we need to establish the origin of ideas. We should justify our claims, provide their context for your work, show there is interest in your field of research. All these things can be obtained through proper referencing format. And if you look at that, a good quality science that is of interest to other readers, we need to look at that is within the scope of the journal, whether the manuscript is the idea describes a research that advances the field, adds to an active research field, is carefully prepared and formatted with all required sections, use clear and concise language, follows ethical standard. If you have all these things, that journal is telling that good quality journal or good quality paper. Now, when we look at that, most often we used to have rejection. There are two types of rejection. One is technical and another one is editorial. What is technical? If you have incomplete data, poor analysis, inappropriate methodology, weak research motive, inaccurate conclusions, plagiarism, inappropriate reference formats. When your data does not answer the questions posed, then you will have a technical rejection. People will not go into the detail of the work that you have done. Instead, they will look at the format and they will reject. Okay, how to avoid? read the author's guidelines and strictly go through and fill what are the things that are missing. Then you will not have a technical rejection. The editorial rejection is the one that is done by the editor. Most probably they will say out of scope for the journal. Research ethics ignored, such as consent from patients, lack of proper structure, or not following journal formatting requirements, lack of the necessary details for readers to fully understand and repeat the author's analysis and experiments, lack of up-to-date references or references containing a high proportion of self-citations, has a poor language quality, difficult to follow logic, or poorly represented data. Violation of publication ethics. If the editor find any one of the things here in your manuscript, immediately it will be subjected to editorial rejection. So editorial rejections can be avoided when you follow the guidelines, ensuring you write a coherent paper in good English and honestly assessing your work when deciding on a target journal. When you send the journal, the reviewers are giving the comments back, and once you look at the reviewers' comment, we have to write a polite response to the reviewers' question. Okay, so when you have the capability of addressing certain comments, and when you do not have a forum to give proper answer, you can politely say that what is your situation, you can explain, and you can get sometimes ideas and helps from the reviewers itself. So once you follow all these things, you will have a successful time in writing academic paper, and I wish you all the very best to complete a manuscript and submit to a good journal so that it will get published in a reputed journal. I wish you all the very best, and thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.